Okay, we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome everyone who is watching us on Facebook Live to the Moms of Hoosier Action Mother's Day Week of Action Kickoff event. The Moms of Hoosier Action are doing a week of action as we lead up to Mother's Day, and one of the things that we want for Mother's Day are safe working conditions so we can have safe and healthy pregnancies. And we're going to talk about that today and the federal opportunity that we have with the Pregnant Worker Fairness Act. So before we get started, if everyone here on the live could introduce themselves and let everyone who is watching on live know who they're watching. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Samantha.
Hi, I'm Samantha. I am a mom with Hoosier Action, and I am from Fishers, Indiana.
April?
I am April LaPasa. I'm a leader with Moms of Hoosier Action, and I'm out here in Martinsville.
Sara?
Hi, I'm Sara Brafman, and I am with A Better Balance. We are an organization leading on the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act.
Awesome. And my name is Eva. I am calling in from Unionville. I am a mom of three, and I am the statewide moms organizer with Hoosier Action. So a little bit about Hoosier Action. We are a nonpartisan grassroots organization that is statewide, and we believe that everyday Hoosiers should be at the center of the decisions that affect our lives, and that we should have a state where everyone is thriving. So Hoosier Action and the Moms of Hoosier Action just wrapped up with our state's legislative session, where we fought against a really bad pregnancy bill that did end up passing, but this bill would offer no protections for women and no accommodations in the workplace. The bill number was House Bill 1309, and it's a real problem. 47% of Indiana's workforce is made up of women, and Indiana is at the bottom of the list when it comes to our infant and maternal death rates. And we're finding, as we talk to hundreds of moms across the state, that too many of them were putting their pregnancies, their lives, and their babies' lives at risk to be able to put food on the table. And all because they weren't getting simple accommodations like water breaks, bathroom breaks, a stool to sit, not lifting above the weight of what you're supposed to lift when you're pregnant, and having to work with toxic chemicals without proper protective gear. And we deserve better. We deserve better because all moms, no matter the color of their skin, their geography, their income level, deserve safe working conditions while pregnant so that they can have safe and healthy pregnancies. And right now, moms, not only moms are at risk, but our economic future for our state is at risk if we don't have real protections and can keep women in the workforce. So again, we're kicking off this week of action so we can get those protections. And that's what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to actually pass it to Sara Brafman to talk a little bit about Better Balance and talk about the Pregnant Worker Fairness Act.
Thank you so much. I obviously forgot to unmute myself, as we all do on Zoom. And I just want to thank you all for having me here today. Again, I'm Sara Brafman. I am Senior Policy Counsel at A Better Balance. For those who may not be familiar, A Better Balance is a national legal advocacy organization, and we work to advance justice for workers so that they can care for themselves, care for their families, without compromising their economic security. And one of the issues that is very near and dear to our hearts and on which we lead the movement is on the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. And the idea and the necessity of the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act came from what Eva was just talking about, that we were hearing at A Better Balance from workers all over the country who were forced to make an impossible choice. That choice being, do I ask for accommodations and worry that my boss is going to push me out just for needing those simple accommodations to stay healthy? Or do I get denied those accommodations and then keep working and risk my health because I need those accommodations? And we've seen how horrific it is on both sides of that equation. So we have seen women who have kept working because they needed that paycheck to feed their families. and have risked their health, and because of that went into premature labor because maybe they kept lifting, or they miscarried at work even, or we've seen women who have asked for accommodations and then get pushed out and then no longer have a paycheck. They're the primary or sole breadwinner for their family, and all of a sudden they have no income with a baby on the way. So we've worked with women who have been forced into homelessness. We've worked with women who, we had one, advocate she's now an advocate that we worked with, who already had a child, no longer had a paycheck because she was forced out, and literally did not have money to afford milk to put in her child's cereal. So she put water instead. And that just can't be in 2021. We cannot live in a world where we're so disrespectful of pregnancy and so devalue motherhood that we are in a situation where this is a choice that anybody has to make, let alone pregnant workers. And it's been really an honor to be able to work with Hoosiers on trying to push forward a bill in Indiana. The bill that came about was really not the one that anybody wanted to see, but it was not for lack of effort on the part of so many people in Indiana. And I know so many advocates that worked with Hoosier Action. So while it is a disappointment, I first just want to say that I admire so much all of the work and effort that went into that campaign, and it was not for naught in any way, shape, or form. And what I'm here to say today is that there's still an opportunity to get involved and to be engaged in trying to get a policy like this passed. It won't be necessarily this year at the state level, but it will be at the federal level, which means it's a policy that could work both for folks in Indiana and in all the neighboring states, in all 50 states. And that, of course, what I'm talking about is the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. And what the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act would do is very similar to what folks really were hoping for in Indiana, which is that employers would have to provide accommodations for pregnant workers. And when I say accommodations, it's kind of a legal wonky term just for modest changes in the workplace, like extra bathroom breaks, like being able to carry a water bottle, like being allowed to not lift over 50 pounds because it could harm your pregnancy. And employers would have to provide those unless it's really difficult or really expensive for them to provide them. And what's really exciting is that this bill could really move. I know there's often a feeling that at the federal level, nothing moves and it's all just slow going over there. But what I am here to say, and what's really exciting, is that this bill really can move. And there's a reason for that. And that's because we have built up a movement that has led to legislators from both sides of the aisle really supporting this legislation. So for instance, in September of last year, which is only about 7 months ago, but feels like a year or 3 years or 100 years ago at this point, the bill actually passed the House of Representatives with all of the Democrats supporting and a majority of the Republican members supporting. So that's over 300 members of Congress voting in support of the bill. And what's really exciting is that most of the Indiana delegation supported the legislation. Both Democrats and Republicans supported the legislation. So we didn't get that bill over the finish line last year because it was very close to the end of the year. It didn't move through the Senate as well. But this year, we have the time, we have the energy, and we have the mobilization, hopefully from everyone who's watching this Facebook Live, to really get this bill signed into law. And there's a couple of ways you can take action. We are having a Pregnant Workers Fairness Act Week of Action, which we're so grateful Hoosier Action is supporting. And we want to see the House of Representatives vote on this bill for Mother's Day, meaning that they would vote on this bill as early as next week. So really encourage everyone to fill out the Take Action, which hopefully we can put in the chat, to write to your representative. It's super easy. You can take 2 minutes. If you just input your data, it'll send directly to your member of Congress and directly to your senator. And what's really exciting, and you say, okay, we're trying to move this in the House of Representatives, what does the Senate have to do with this? Well, last week, the Senate introduced the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act with bipartisan support. So far, we have 3 Republican members and 3 Democratic members supporting the legislation. The Republican members are Senators Cassidy, Capito, and Murkowski, and the Democratic members are Senators Cassidy, Shaheen, and Smith. And so you'll say to yourself, where are my Indiana senators on this bill? And that's where you all come in. We would love to see Senators Young and Braun on this legislation, and that takes making your voices heard to really get them to support this legislation. Often, it's not a matter of will, it's just a matter that they have a lot of things on their desk and they're going to move legislation that their constituents want them to move. So the more they hear from constituents, the more they are likely to actually take the step of getting on board and supporting. So I will leave it there because I just talked a lot, and turn it back over to Eva and Samantha and April and the whole crew.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that.
Hi, Sarah. My name's April. I know I already said that. And this is Athena. Sorry, I was away from her for 45 minutes, so it's the end of the world. I've experienced 2 pregnancies while working for 2 different big companies. One of them had me climbing ladders at 30 weeks or 38 weeks pregnant with her. And the other one made it extremely difficult to call doctors, go to appointments, even after I was diagnosed with cancer, because of their strict attendance policies. And we also weren't allowed to have phones with us past our lockers. No water, food, or sitting at our stations, monitored bathroom breaks. And I was eventually told it'd be better to go ahead and quit because of my health and the health of my baby. Moms of Hoosier Action has been working really hard to help protect pregnant workers and get protections on the job. We've sent out hundreds of surveys, talked to moms who have experienced pregnancy while working. We've met with legislators to let them know we want things to change for pregnant workers. And so my questions for you would be, what rights do we as moms have currently? And what would it mean if the Pregnant Worker Fairness Act passes, and who would be protected?
That is such a good question. And I'm so sorry that happened to you, April. That's awful, and it just shouldn't be. And thank you for sharing and speaking out and taking action. And hi, Athena. She's such a cutie. So right now, the protections that workers have predominantly are the Pregnancy Discrimination Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. The Pregnancy Discrimination Act, I think a lot of people are familiar with it as an anti-discrimination bill, meaning you go into your job and you say, I'm pregnant, and they say, good luck to you, you're fired. Or you just say you're pregnant and they say, okay, well, we're going to cut back your hours. And so that's kind of traditional form of discrimination. When it comes to accommodations, the PDA is a little bit more confusing. The way the Pregnancy Discrimination Act works now is that in order to get accommodations under that law, you need to be able to show that someone else in your workplace who's similar to you received accommodations as well and received similar accommodations. Now, that standard is incredibly difficult because who knows what's going on in their workplace and which employees are getting accommodations and when they're getting them or how they're getting them. I have no idea. Most people have absolutely no idea. And so with that law, there's a real gap, because if you can't identify someone else in your workplace, which is incredibly difficult to do, who's getting accommodations, then you can't necessarily get accommodations. Then you have the Americans with Disabilities Act, which says if you have a disability, you can get an accommodations. But under the law, pregnancy is not a disability. So you need to have a pregnancy-related disability in order to get accommodations. And the trouble with that is that a lot of courts have interpreted disability in a very narrow way. So even people that might have complications related to their pregnancy might not have coverage under that law, let alone the fact that a lot of people who are pregnant don't have a complication. Their doctor might say you shouldn't lift so that you prevent a complication from happening. So the ADA for a lot of people is very reactive when we're trying to be very proactive. And so what the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act does is to say there are gaps in the law right now. no one should have to look at whatever anyone else is doing, and no one should have to prove that they have a complication to get an accommodation. We want to make sure that if you're pregnant, if you have a medical need related to your pregnancy, doesn't have to be a complication, that you can get the accommodations you need, full stop, no questions asked there. And we are really hopeful and have seen already, because at the same time that we've been working on the federal bill, we have been working very hard on state level bills, as Indiana is a prime example. Now, there are 30 states that already have these protections. And we've seen already just how much of a difference it makes. We run a legal helpline. I encourage anyone who has questions on any of this to call our helpline if you have a personal need and you want to talk that through because you're pregnant at the moment, or someone who is and is having trouble, that we talk with workers. And the difference between talking with a worker that's from a state that already has this law versus without the law is night and day. Because one way you reach an informal resolution quickly. And as we all know, a lot of these accommodations, pregnancy is for a finite period of time. You might need them for a few weeks, a few months, and then it's over. So if you need an accommodation, you need it like yesterday often. You can't wait 6 weeks for HR to figure out who else is being accommodated. You need it right now. So I hope that answers the question.
So I kind of want to add to that. I had an experience that was very imminent. I was working at a local hospital and I was pregnant. I had had a history of miscarriages in the past. So I was taking care of my own patient. I snuck away to the bathroom and discovered that I was bleeding. So with my history of previous losses, I called my OB. He said, clock out, go upstairs, go to labor and delivery, and we'll try to get you taken care of. So as I reached out to my direct supervisor and also a couple levels above her, with both of them, I was told, no, you can't leave. We can't spare you. You have to find your own replacement and you have to wait for them to show up before you can go to labor and delivery. So I was, working, taking care of my patient, trying to coordinate everything. And unfortunately, by the time that I was able to leave and make it upstairs, it was too late. So it definitely presented that situation where I was having to choose between my job and my pregnancy. So since then, I've been involved with Hoosier Action, and we've done interviews with Indy Star, NPR, there was a press conference, and all of this attention brought to 1309 to show that it was not a suitable bill that actually gave women accommodations. So I testified at the first Senate chamber hearing, and we didn't get it to go the way that we wanted, but we did kind of close in on getting it closer to stopping that bill. So you kind of answered my question already about, contacting your congressman, using the link in the chat to reach out to them. But I guess I want to ask now, how big of an impact does that have when your everyday person reaches out to their congressman?
It has an incredible impact. And I want to, April, I'm so sorry. I mean, that is heartbreaking, and that doesn't, I've heard you speak about this before, and it never gets easier to hear that. So yeah, I'm just so sorry, and that you were put into that position. But this is what members need to hear, because members of Congress, they often like to say, is this just a solution in search of a problem? Are you just trying to legislate because you want to legislate, or is there actually a problem here? And they need to hear from their constituents that there is actually a problem here. And I'll be the first to say, so there was a good example. We hosted a lobby day last year, and right before the pandemic started, and a group of Hoosiers met with one of the Republican representatives in Congress. And I will say, before that meeting, I could almost guarantee that he would vote no on the bill. But because of that meeting, and I will say sustained pressure that was put on him, he ended up voting yes for the bill. And I think that was the case for several members, that they wanted to hear from their constituents and that they couldn't hide because their constituents were on them, right? They don't care. I live in DC. Like, they could not care two hoots what I think about this piece of legislation. They care what their constituents think. And if their constituents are going in with personal stories and saying, this is what happened to me, you cannot ignore this, that it is critical. So I think the take action is the first step. You have to start writing to them. And the bill was just introduced in the Senate last week. So writing that letter is the first step. And I think, we're hopeful that we can organize with Hoosier Action to build up that sustained pressure on the Indiana members over the next couple of months, because it's critical. I mean, it's not just a nice to do and, oh, I feel good about myself because I wrote to my member. Like, that is what gets bills over the finish line, is by hearing from constituents. There are members of Congress who will not meet with people from DC. They will only meet with their constituents. So you're going in and you're sharing that, April, is going to have an incredible impact. And I know that, with your help, we'll be able to get, hopefully the senators on board in the next couple of months. Can never promise because, it's Congress, but it will not go unnoticed.
April, were you gonna say something before I jump in?
I was going to say, if you're watching this live on Facebook with us and you've had an experience while pregnant, go ahead and share it in the chat so we can read that too.
Yeah. Yes, we really, for those of you who are watching, we really want to hear from you and your experience. And our chat monitors are dropping those links in the chat throughout. So be sure to click on them so we can reach out to our senators about this bill. One final question, which is like, we're moving, and it seems like the Pregnant Fairness Workers Act. Yes. I think I mixed those two up, but that's okay.
Everybody gets it wrong. The bill was introduced in 2012, like before the digital age. And I think, yes.
Every once in a while, I'll flip the two. But the thing I want to ask is, like, this seems like this year really has a real shot of passing, and it's got a lot of support. And we're hoping that they sign onto this bill by Mother's Day for mothers everywhere. I think my question is, like, with this level of urgency versus like Indiana's response to less like a small amount of pressure with something not so good, and then like the federal government, like, is there urgency there? Do we feel like it's gonna kind of move quickly? Like, and how soon, if it does pass, would we be able to see like those really awesome protections be put in place?
That's a great question. And I will say, things never move as quickly on the federal level as you want them to. I want it done yesterday. I want it done 5 years ago, but we are very hopeful. We're really pushing to hopefully get a vote in the House of Representatives within the next couple of weeks. That's really what we're pushing for. And then it has to move through the Senate after that. And that is its whole own process. But I can't ever make any promises because it's at the whims of so many forces that are beyond our control. But I think it would be so amazing to see this wrapped up in 2021. And it really just takes, the reason why anything ever moves is because that sense of urgency is sustained for members, that they really feel like this cannot wait any longer. And so we will act on it now. And so I'm really hoping that in this calendar year, if not early in the next calendar year, it can actually move past the Senate and then move to the president's desk, where I think we feel confident the president will hopefully sign it into law. And then we really, once we have a law, there it is, and we can start benefiting from it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sara, for being on this call with us. thank you, April and Samantha, for sharing your stories. And for those of you who are watching us, again, we really want to hear from you. We want to hear about what would have made you feel more supported while you were working while pregnant and what you need now. We really, we want more moms at the table. When you choose to have a child in this state, you are not only investing in your future, but you're investing in the future of our state. And we as moms, as families, should really be at the table when those decisions are made. So join us. We're going to have another Mom's Coffee Hour on May 16th. Join us. It's really great. Bring your babies with you. It's on Zoom. We really do want more moms at the table with us. And please reach out to your senators. They have to know, just like Sara said, we have to keep that level of pressure and that level of urgency so we can get real protections for us and our families and our futures. Thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.